Hi friends, there's been a lot of video clips and things about what's happening in Gaza these days, but there's one part of the story that has not been told, or at least I haven't seen it, and I think it's time we talk about it. And it has to do with why Americans support what Israel is doing in Gaza. A number of years ago, it's probably in late 1980s, I was traveling in the West Bank in a car driven by a Palestinian man whom I just met. And he asked me point blank, he said, "Why do American Christians hate us so much?" And I said, "I'm going to tell you the story, but you may not believe me." And I told him, and let me tell you the story, because it is absolutely true. Look it up in history, look it up, whatever you get your factual information from, and double check if what I'm saying is not true. But it has to do with the Christian view of Americans, or Christians in America. For 1800 years after the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the church, if anything, erred on the side of being anti-Semitic. During the Inquisition, especially the Spanish Inquisitions, Jews were murdered, they were abused, discriminated against by the church, by Christians throughout Europe and around the world. And then this all changed in 1800. There's a Irishman born, John Nelson Darby, born that year. He was a lawyer, but became a priest and a Bible scholar, or not, I won't say a scholar, let me say a Bible teacher. He did a lot of writings. He eventually left the Church of England, if I remember right. He came up with a brand new idea by reading some of the passages in the Bible that have to do with prophecies. And if you've ever read them, it's like reading tea leaves. They're very obscure, confusing, to say the least. But he based on Isaiah chapter 32, and I want you to look it up and read it, and you'll see what I mean, how he took a few words and twisted them so much. If I remember right, chapter 32 talks about some positive times coming for the people of Israel, and this was written, I think, 1500 years BC to the nation of Israel, maybe 1,000 years BC. And he took those words and came up with an idea of what is called dispensationalism. It's where there's this pattern where God has worked with humanity in 7 great dispensations. You won't find this in the Bible. He created this out of thin air based on a few passages. And in his dispensationalism, he came up with the idea that God would return to the nation of Israel at the end times and make Israel a nation again, and make Israel blessed of all nations. And God was going to work through this new Israel to bring salvation to the world. So, and I wish I was the end of the story, but he wrote about these things and taught about these things. Then on this side of the pond in the U.S., there's another lawyer who was a swindler. If you look at his early life, he spent time in jail for taking bribes. He was married to 2 different women, had 2 different families going at one time. Supposedly he had a sudden interest in religions. I don't know if he had a true conversion. Wasn't there. This was C.I. Scofield, who was born, seemed like mid-1800s. He became enthralled in the teachings of John Nelson Darby and actually went to Ireland. And I don't know if you say he studied under him or he's just talked to him for a while and became convinced of this dispensationalism and this idea that God was going to make Israel a nation again. You know, this is way before the creation of the nation of Israel in 1947. This was 100 years before that. So Scofield came back to the States, and, you know, anytime you come up with a new idea, people are very interested in, especially something that's sort of off the charts. So he was real excited about this new idea he had. He actually created a Bible. I think the Bible itself part was King James Bible, I'm not sure. But he wrote in the margins of this Bible all these theories and I want to use the word conspiracy. They were conspiracy because they had very little basis about the 7 dispensational periods of history and how God is going to call Israel back together and create this nation of Israel. Well, he published his Bible in, I think it was 1909, somewhere around in there, and it became the #1 best-selling book that Oxford Press had produced, and it was the first book to sell 1 million copies in the U.S. And virtually every home had a copy of the Scofield Bible. You go out in the prairie, in the Midwest, and the South, wherever you were, people have the Scofield Bible on their coffee table as the Bible. A lot of people didn't understand that those comments in the margins were not part of the original scripture. They assumed it was part of this holy book, these writings of C.I. Scofield. So that created this momentum, and still we're in the early 1900s, that Israel's got to be a nation again, and then God's going to bless that nation, and it's going to usher in the end times and the return of Jesus. And again, these things are in the Bible. Read it for yourself. So again, this is before World War II, but when World War II came, it was a horrible thing what happened to the Jews in Europe, how they were persecuted. They were made the scapegoats of Germany. The Nazis did. And of course, you know about the slaughter. 7 million Jews in concentration camps and were murdered in cold blood. And there is no question about that. And rightly so, the whole world had compassion for Israel after this happened. And I can't say for sure. I've studied this and I've found no positive evidence, but it sounds like Truman was a Christian and believed in dispensationalism, or at least it's because it was the most popular way to believe at the time. I'm not sure if he had a Scofield Bible, but that was part of the reason between him and people in the UK and other countries decided to help create the nation of Israel. Now, don't take me wrong. I'm not against now, because it would be very complicated to dissolve the nation of Israel. So that's not my point. That's not my ambition. I would say I encourage you to read the letters of Albert Einstein. He was a pacifist, extreme pacifist. He was also a Jew and a Zionist. But he warned Israelis or Jews going back to Israel that go there and live in harmony with your Arab and Christian brothers of the Palestine. But do not cause trouble. Do not demean them, or you'll have to pay for this forever. So I really respect Einstein's view. A home for Jews without hating their brothers, their Arab brothers. But anyway, that's another story. So today, well, before today, let me go back to the 1970s, after I graduated from high school. Hal Lindsey wrote a book called Late Great Planet Earth, and he incorporated in this book this dispensationalism that I've just been talking about, and how it was necessary that Israel was created as a country, and he used that as proof that the end times were there. It's sort of a double standard of that. We're going to create the nation of Israel because the Bible says we should. It doesn't, but that's what they said. And now, because we've created the nation of Israel, it's proof that the Bible was right. So anyway, that was in his book, Late Great Planet Earth. His book not only became a bestseller, the Time magazine declared it the best-selling book of the entire decade of the 70s. Every Christian home had Late Great Planet Earth. Now, in his book, he described a lot of things that's going to be taking place in the 70s and 80s that just never happened. His book was entirely wrong on all those things. But it built in the Christian community this idea that the nation of Israel is sacred. It cannot be questioned. We can supply them with all the arms that they need. So over here are these Palestinian people. Now let's go back to October 7th in 2023. Hamas came in and killed 1,200 Jews, and I forgot how many were kidnapped. Horrible thing. Horrible thing. I'm not questioning that at all. I'm not questioning what happened last week when this person murdered in cold blood 2 Jews in Washington, D.C. It makes no sense that you're going to murder 2 innocent people to to protest the murder of innocent people in Gaza. Makes no sense. So that was extremely wrong. Just like Hamas attacking Israel on October 7th was extremely wrong. But killing those 1,200 Israelis and taking the kidnapped people, how does that justify the murder of 50,000 people? At least 50,000. Many of them are women and children, innocent people that have nothing to do with Hamas. And right now, 2 million are being starved. And people in America don't care. If you look at Europe, Europe is really, there's massive crowds. They're protesting. Governments like, speaking of Ireland, the government of Ireland and many other countries, The Hague, in the Scandinavian countries, France, more outroar, out protest, and or people out protesting in England. But in America, there's this feeling that you cannot question. You cannot question this at all. So I know there's a lot of good Christian people because I was in the evangelical world for 38 years. And I know there's a lot of good people. They have this heart for the unborn. That's what motivates them. They would go out and stand on the sidewalk. Well, I did it too, and protest abortion clinics over a zygote, a single cell life form that, because it has a potential to turn into human, they will, that's a huge deal. But at the same time, babies are being massacred every day in Palestine, and no one gives a damn. But I think if they understood this information, that they would actually come to their senses. Because if they look at the teachings of Jesus, which is in black and white, this other stuff about the nation of Israel and all this stuff is just in thin air. There's just no support in the Bible for that without, fantasizing a bit, like reading tea leaves. But what Jesus Christ taught was, the Beatitudes, and the parable of the goats and sheep. And in that parable, Jesus talks about, to the least of these people in society, that's how you treat me, the way you treat them. So right now, the least people in the world society, the way it looks, are the children in Gaza, maybe children in Sudan, children in Ukraine. These are the least, but the most disrespected people, at least from the American viewpoint, are the children in Gaza. And that's the way you think about the children in Gaza is how your relationship with Jesus will be measured. Because that's what he said. It's in black and white. Read it. So my point is, I think if you understood this story, that maybe your eyes will be open to the suffering and do something about it. Tell your senators and congressmen, stop sending weapons to destroy these children, to stop supporting Israel. And Netanyahu belongs in prison. He's a war criminal. And it's not against your religion to say that. And that's all I want to say. Thanks so much for giving me this time.